Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week in estimates, the Labour Minister agreed she knew there are about equal number of research studies that don't support an increased minimum wage as those studies that do. And of course, a minimum wage policy with a 50-50 chance of destroying jobs for up to 300,000 Albertans, including many in the Fort McMurray area, Mr. Speaker, is something that Albertans would be concerned about. So to the Labour Minister, why did you choose to pay attention to the evidence that saying a $15 minimum wage was good and ignore the evidence saying it's not good, particularly at this time when all of Alberta is...
The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has been clear in supporting a phase-in of $15 minimum wage. And the opposition does like to speculate about some of the data around minimum wage. But here in Alberta, nearly 1 in 3 who access the food bank are working people, according to those who run the food banks in Canada. And why are they going to the food bank? Because they're using their income to pay rent, telephone, transportation, and other essentials of living. And this is wrong. We believe that all Albertans should be able to support their families without having to go to the food bank. Thank you.
For supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government has already agreed that a minimum wage won't keep people out of the food bank. Those are not living wage jobs. That's a different thing. In estimates, the minister also could not tell us how the government is planning on addressing the brain drain of qualified workers leaving Alberta. Of course, a big part of that brain drain is people from the Fort McMurray area that work in technical fields, Mr. Speaker. So to the Labour Minister again, in case and when the day comes when Albertans are able to create jobs, what will the minister do to stop the brain drain and keep those people, and again, including in Fort McMurray here, so that they can fill the jobs when they open up again?
Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are very aware of the challenging times that we are facing here in Alberta right now, given the low global price of oil. We are supporting our workers by providing training opportunities as well as engagements to allow them to upgrade their skills so that they will be able to stay here in Alberta and contribute productively to our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also in estimates last week, the Labour Minister, when asked about costs, said, and I quote, "It is the Finance and Health Minister's goal to spend less, potentially." So in this time, again, when the economy's bad and people in Fort McMurray are feeling it more than anything else, Mr. Speaker, I have to ask the Finance Minister, what are your government's plans to spend less on labour? Which people will you not employ? Which ones will you pay less, and in which departments?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I think I've stood up in this House before and I've talked about the different initiatives that are turning down the tap on expenditures for wages. All members of the Legislature have taken a freeze in their salaries. Political staff have as well. Management have taken a 2-year freeze and a grid movement freeze. We're also looking at there'll be a bill coming in later that looks at the agencies, boards and commissions and asks them to look at the compensations. We have negotiations that will be taking place at the negotiations table with all of our unionized people, and we're looking for improvements there, recognizing the environment.
Thank you, Honourable.